Hey, you guys, there's a bit of a departure. I want to talk about a few of the most sort of powerful, inspiring, touching stories about when I was an inner city high school teacher in the US. And this was 15, 20 years ago, and 20 years ago. And just a few of the stories I was telling actually to my sister the other day, who's also a teacher, and they're worth recounting. And it gives us a glimpse into what the amazing teachers at these schools. Some amazing, some are just dialing it in, but but and the amazing students who are also surviving, sometimes in tough conditions. But anyway, I taught at Richmond High School, and I also taught at De Anza High. Taught at many high schools, but Richmond High School near in the San Francisco Bay Area, which was the subject of the film Coach Carter with Samuel L. Jackson, which is a true to life Hollywood movie. And I was there while this was transpiring, this sort of era that the movie was based on. So I knew all the people that were characterized in the movie. Anyway, it was a very rough high school, and the statistics are kind of horrendous about crime and murder and pregnancy and all these things in the area. And I was even the sexual health coordinator for the local health department, Contra Costa County Health Department, after I left there. So I would talk to the kids, give them demonstrations about sexual health and safety and things like that. So I was really involved. Anyway, I taught Spanish at Richmond High, but at De Anza High is where I have most of my good stories, which was an adjacent high school, which I taught at later. There was, there were no there was no I taught English at De Anza High, and both of them I taught with an emergency credential. So I had just graduated from UC Berkeley. I had a very good education, but I didn't have an education as a teacher. And so you can teach at schools that sort of are desperate, for lack of a better term, and you get that with an emergency credential, which just means go start teaching. And this was actually my third year on an emergency credential, so I was already quite a seasoned teacher. I just never had gone through the training, but I had sort of been trialed by fire, and I could already teach other teachers how to teach. It was, anyway, I was teaching English, and I didn't really have much English in college, but I just called my sister, who's an English professor, and I said, what do I do? And she told me, and I was very comfortable with reading and writing. So we had no books. I taught English 1, 2, and 3, and we had no books, no resources. Often we didn't have chalk to write on the board. So you just walk in the room and there's nothing there. And you have certainly some challenging classrooms full of students as well, and no books. And so I said, okay, well, we're going to buy our own books. So each student brought in I still remember, $2.25, and in all my 5 classes, and we bought one set of books for all of the classes. Now, I'll admit, and so we had to choose what books, and I thought, well, we can learn reading and writing, but I also want to learn some important themes. Now, I was biased, so I chose a book about personal transformation. It's called Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and it was a true story about a local guy, actually, Dan Millman. And it's about becoming aware of yourself and, accomplishing things and moving past hurdles, life hurdles. So we bought those books, and students actually did bring the money, and we kept them in the class and we read them, and they got a lot of spiritual awareness. And students still contact me now and say, I really loved that book, and at lunchtime they could come in there and we could talk about their sort of self-awareness and personal advancement. And I remember this one student, and I won't mention her name, of course, but she was really difficult and would come in cursing and yelling, and there was a lot of discipline problems in these classes in general, which I was very good at managing, I will say, if I may say, because I developed these skills and it was tested by fire. And a lot of unmet needs in the student body, and so I don't necessarily blame them. Sometimes I did, but we had to work together. This is an example. So she would come in every day cursing and loud and, just whatever. And I would say, hey, you got to sit down. You can't do that. You can't speak that way in this class. And please, 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 please. And she was never disrespectful directly to me. She was just loud and kind of profane. And so, one time I said, hey, you know what? Come on, let's go outside. And I would take her outside sometimes and say, listen, you got to calm down. Can't do that in class. And one day I took her outside, And something just came over me, and I sat down next to her, and she had been cursing and yelling in class, and I just said, rather than chastising her, I said, "Are you having a bad day?" And just tears came down her face. You know, I just talked to the core of what was wrong, not the symptom, which was the cursing. And she said, "Oh, I had such a bad day, and I don't like it at my house right now, and I hate going home, and it's so hard, and this and that, and I come to school and whatever." And she put her head on my shoulder, and I said, we broke through. And I said, "I hear you. Let's work on that. How can I help you?" I said, in the meantime, you got to tone it down in class. You can't bring that to class. You can mention it to me, or we can talk it through, but don't bring it in class. And she said, "Totally, I get it." We broke through. So she would still, after that, everything changed. And she would still come in sometimes and head full of steam and start cursing. And I would just say her name, like, "Hey, listen," I'd say it was Monica, but it wasn't. Like, "Monica, please, can we calm down?" And she'd say, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." And she would immediately calm down because we had connected, and I didn't just shame her or, like, "You got to go to the principal's office," because that doesn't work. Another really interesting story was there's this kid a boy, who used to run around during one of my classes, and he would slam windows and slam doors and just go. It's an outdoor LA or California campus, so he was sort of outside and he would run around. And I asked my students, "Who is that guy?" And they told me his name. I remember it. It was one of those 3 names, like he had first, middle, last. And one time he ran by and slamming windows, and he broke the window on my room. And so I went outside and I yelled his full name. So he knew I knew his name, and he stopped. And I said, "Hey, come here. You're not in trouble. Just come here. I want to talk to you. I'm not going to turn you in. You're not in trouble." So he came up, and I basically said, "Hey, look, you're causing damage." And he had done other things. He had lit a fire in a dumpster on campus, and nothing terrible, but And I said, "Look, when babies are from 0 to about 4, a lot of the power that they have, the only power that they have is to destroy things. If you build something, they want to knock it down, or they want to spill a cup of water. It gives them power. They don't have enough, dexterity to build. But after that, they start realizing, wow, it's an incredible feeling to be able to build something, like with Legos or with anything, even piling up pillows. They think, wow, building something is so much power." And I said, "It seems like you like to destroy things. So you're kind of stuck in that, 0 to 4-year-old zone." I said, let's think about things you could build, things that you could do and shift into a new phase. I said, again, I'm not going to turn you in. I'm not mad at you. That talk, he just never did that again. He never ran around again, never did the windows again. Something sunk in. But here's the great thing about that story. That kid, this is high school. He was like 17. I was also the head track coach. Turns out that kid, who I had made a nice connection with, comes out, tries out for track. He was the fastest kid in the school. He was so gifted. He had such beautiful natural form. If you could just see this kid run, I mean, a beautiful runner. Fastest kid in the school. And I said, "Oh my God, we've got a gem here." And we had a couple other fast kids. So I thought, you know what, we're gonna do really well in the relays and in conference and whatever. And problem was, we didn't have uniforms, just like we didn't have books. And so I said, okay, we gotta buy uniforms, because the track team had sort of disbanded a couple years before because they didn't have money and uniforms and whatever. And so I said, well, how are we gonna make this money? So I would go by. Now I feel bad about this because it involves donuts, because I'm a healthy guy and I always promote health. But I thought, well, can't be perfect. So I would go to the donut shop, and at the end of the day, when they hadn't sold donuts, basically they're day-old donuts, not even a whole day, I would buy them for $0.25 each, still remember. And then I would bring them to school the next day, and kids on the track team, I'd say, look, stand here and sell them for 50 cents each. It's arbitrage. Like, you buy it here cheap and you sell it here expensive, 50 cents each. And we did that. We sold donuts for weeks and weeks, and we finally made enough money to buy some track uniforms. So we had a track team, track uniforms, this fastest kid who I had bonded with. We went to conference, And right before a conference meet, I was talking to the other coaches, and I said, "Yeah, we're gonna win the 4x1 relay." They're like, "Oh, you're so sure?" I was like, "Yeah, wait till our anchor gets the baton." And we had enough speed on the first three legs that I knew we would win, or I thought we would win, and we did. He got the baton, and he passed everybody. We won the conference, and just what it took to cultivate a relationship with him, and to buy the uniforms, and to buy those books, just to make everything function, you know, was a lot, but it was also very, very satisfying. I guess that's the moral of the story there. And I always felt so needed in schools that, but also quite abused, because there was some generational pain. There is in every community, really, but some generational pain that was sometimes let loose on me. And that was tough, and I won't get into those stories, and I certainly wasn't perfect either, but over the years, I got really good at understanding what was needed, a firm front, but then a very, very compassionate, deeper levels, because really what was needed was adult figures who were loving and consistent, which all kids need. So I did my best to do that. Sometimes I did it well, and sometimes I didn't. I think I had one more to tell, and I forgot. But anyway, that's my story from my De Anza High School teaching years. And maybe you're one of my former students watching this, and please chime in. There's 100 more stories, which were challenging and wonderful and interesting and beautiful. So thanks for listening.